Let me ask you something honest. Have you ever met someone who felt like the right person? The conversation flowed, the laughter came easily, and you felt something real. But no matter what you did, their interest slipped away. You showed up. You were kind. You were attentive. You gave everything you thought a person could want. And still, somehow, the more effort you put in, the more distant they became. Here is the truth. Nobody ever sat you down to explain. It was never about effort. It was never about kindness. Those things matter, but they were never the whole picture. And the part of the picture nobody shows you is the part that changes everything. I'm Magda. Welcome to Magda and the Mind. Today I'm sharing 7 science-backed psychological principles that explain exactly how attraction and desire form in the human brain. Not opinions, not dating advice from the internet, actual behavioral neuroscience, actual attachment research, actual social psychology. And I need you to stay until the 7th one, because that final trigger, the one rooted in how dopamine works in the brain, is the one almost nobody talks about correctly. And once you understand it, you will never see attraction the same way again. Before we get into the 7 triggers, I want to reframe something that most people get completely wrong. We tend to think of attraction as a decision, a conscious choice someone makes after evaluating you. But that is not how the brain works. Attraction is primarily processed in the limbic system, the emotional brain, which operates below conscious awareness. It is the same system responsible for gut feelings, instinctive trust, and the sense you get about a person within seconds of meeting them. What this means is that the words you choose, the compliments you give, the logical argument you make for why you would be wonderful to be with, none of that reaches the deeper brain first. The deeper brain is already running its own evaluation based on entirely different information. Nonverbal signals, energy, behavioral patterns, the quality of your presence in a room. Dr. Albert Mehrabian's landmark research on emotional communication found that up to 93% of the emotional impression we make comes from tone of voice and body language, not from the words we actually say. This doesn't mean words are meaningless. It means the emotional brain is already forming conclusions before your sentence is finished. So if you have ever done everything right and still felt someone slipping away, you are not failing at effort. You are missing a different language entirely. That is what today is about. The first trigger is what researchers call non-anxious presence, and it is the foundation that every other trigger is built on. Studies in social behavior consistently show that status, safety, and value are communicated almost entirely through how a person physically carries themselves. The pace of movement, the use of space, the rhythm of breathing, whether someone is scanning the room for approval or simply existing in it with ease. A calm, grounded, unhurried body sends a subconscious signal to everyone around it. This person is not operating from fear. They are not performing. They are not desperate to be liked. They simply are. Evolutionarily, this reads as security. And security is one of the most universally attractive qualities a human being can embody across all genders, all cultures, all types of relationships. What does this look like in real life? Think about the last time you walked into a room full of people you didn't know well. Did your body shrink? Did your eyes scan faces looking for approval or acceptance? Or did you move with ease, make natural eye contact, and allow yourself to simply be present without needing anything from the room? That difference, invisible to the conscious mind, is registered loudly and immediately by the emotional brain. And here is the important part. This is trainable. Research in somatic psychology shows that physical posture directly influences the nervous system. When you deliberately slow your breathing, relax your shoulders, and ground your feet into the floor, you send regulatory signals to your own brain that actually reduce anxiety, which changes your energy, which changes how every person in that room experiences you. You do not perform confidence. You cultivate it, starting in your body. The second trigger is emotional polarity, and this one surprises almost everyone who hears it. Most of us were raised with the idea that to win someone over, we should agree with them, support them, validate their opinions, mirror their energy back to them. And while empathy and genuine support matter deeply in any relationship, constant agreement does something that nobody warns you about. It flatlines the brain's stimulation response. Dr. Elliot Aronson's research on what is called the gain-loss theory of attraction demonstrates that we are consistently more drawn to people who challenge us respectfully than to those who continuously validate us. The reason is neurological. The brain craves engagement, and engagement requires contrast. Agreement without contrast is the emotional equivalent of silence. Emotional polarity does not mean being argumentative. It does not mean being contrarian or difficult. It means being genuine. It means expressing a real opinion when you have one. It means playfully disagreeing when you actually disagree, rather than contorting yourself into whatever shape you think the other person wants to see. Here is a simple example. Someone tells you they love waking up at 5 in the morning. You genuinely do not. Instead of agreeing to seem compatible, you smile and say 5 in the morning. I deeply respect that. I am absolutely not there yet. What gets you up that early? That response is honest. It is curious. It is engaging. You have just created a real conversation instead of a performance. And real conversations are what the brain remembers. People rarely remember being constantly agreed with. They vividly remember the conversations where they felt genuinely alive, be that conversation. The third trigger is calibrated availability. And before I explain what it is, let me be clear about what it is not. It is not playing games. It is not deliberately ignoring someone to seem mysterious. It is not a manipulation tactic dressed up as strategy. It is the natural result of having a life you are genuinely invested in. Behavioral economics has a well-established principle called scarcity value. We instinctively assign higher worth to things that are not infinitely available. This is not cynical. It is how the human brain evaluates resources, opportunities, and relationships. When your time and attention are completely limitless, when you cancel your plans the moment someone calls, when you respond to every message within seconds, regardless of what you are doing, when your entire world visibly rearranges itself around one person, something happens to your perceived value. It drops, not because you are doing something wrong as a person, but because the signal you are unconsciously broadcasting is, I have nothing else pulling at me. And the brain, rightly or wrongly, reads that as low demand. Now compare that to someone who is genuinely warm when they are present, who gives you their full attention in conversation, who is clearly interested in you, but who also has goals they are working toward, friendships they invest in, passions that fill their time. That person's presence feels different. It feels like something because it has to be earned, because it is limited, because it is not just lying there waiting to be taken for granted. This connects directly to self-determination theory, developed by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, which identifies autonomy and purposeful living as core drivers of human well-being and social magnetism. A person with genuine purpose is naturally attractive, not as a strategy, as a byproduct of actually living. The fourth trigger is what I call intentional memory, and it is one of the most quietly powerful forces in all of human connection. We live in an age of chronic distraction, half-listened conversations, responses typed while someone is still speaking, details absorbed for a moment and then forgotten by the time you reach your car. In this environment, truly paying attention to someone deeply, deliberately, with genuine retention is extraordinarily rare. And rarity, as we have just established, creates value. Psychological research on social bonding consistently identifies feeling truly seen as one of the most powerful drivers of emotional attachment. Not feeling admired, not feeling flattered, feeling genuinely specifically seen. When you remember a small detail someone mentioned in passing, a challenge they were facing, a place they had always wanted to visit, a fear they disclosed briefly and perhaps didn't expect you to retain, and you bring it up naturally days or weeks later, something measurable happens in the brain. Oxytocin is released, the bonding hormone, because that person has been remembered, not just heard in the moment, but actually held in your mind, carried with you. This is not a technique. It is a discipline of presence. It requires putting your phone down when someone is talking. It requires letting people actually matter enough to stay with you. A practical example. Someone mentions in passing that they have a difficult conversation coming up at work next week, something they are clearly anxious about. You send them a message the morning of. I remembered. You have that meeting today. I hope it goes exactly the way you need it to. That single gesture communicates more genuine care than 100 compliments about their appearance ever could. In attachment research, this quality is connected to what John Bowlby described as a secure base, the felt experience of being truly attuned to by another person. It is one of the deepest and most lasting forms of attraction in any relationship. The fifth trigger is structure vulnerability. And this one requires the most nuance of all 7 because it lives right on the edge between deep connection and emotional overwhelm. Many people, particularly those raised in environments that rewarded emotional toughness, carry the belief that attraction requires presenting a flawless front, never admitting failure, never showing uncertainty, never revealing the parts of yourself that feel unresolved or still in progress. The Dr. Brené Brown's research at the University of Houston, published across multiple peer-reviewed studies and replicated widely, established something that permanently shifted how psychologists think about human connection. Vulnerability, when expressed from a position of emotional stability, is not weakness. It is the primary gateway to genuine human closeness. The distinction is everything. There is a profound difference between sharing a past difficulty with groundedness. I went through something genuinely hard, and here is what it gave me: an unloading unprocessed pain onto someone who barely knows you yet. The first creates intimacy. The second creates distance. Structured vulnerability means disclosing honestly without making the other person responsible for your emotional state. It means being real about your humanity without collapsing into it. It means saying, here is something true about me, delivered from a place of security, not desperation. Research on the pratfall effect in social psychology shows that people who appear highly competent become measurably more likable when they reveal genuine imperfections. Perfection is alienating. It creates distance. Humanity creates closeness. So the next time you feel the urge to pretend everything is perfectly fine, consider that honest, composed vulnerability might be precisely what opens the door you have been trying to open with effort alone. The sixth trigger moves into the physical dimension of connection, and it is supported by some of the most robust findings in social neuroscience. A landmark study published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior demonstrated that brief, contextually appropriate physical contact significantly increases feelings of warmth, trust, and perceived closeness between two people. A light touch on the arm during a shared moment of laughter, a brief hand on the shoulder when someone shares something difficult, gestures that are small in size but significant in their neurological effect. The mechanism is direct and well documented. Appropriate touch triggers the release of oxytocin in both people simultaneously. And unlike words, touch bypasses cognitive processing. It speaks directly to the nervous system before the analytical mind has a chance to evaluate it. The variables that determine whether touch connects or repels are consent, context, and timing. Touch that is forced, premature, or that crosses an unspoken boundary activates the threat response instead, releasing cortisol, triggering aversion, and creating exactly the opposite of the effect you intended. But when those conditions are right, when the touch is genuinely natural, responsive to the moment, unhurried, the brain begins to build a positive physical association with your presence. Over time, simply being near you begins to feel like safety and comfort to another person. This is not manipulation. It is human neurobiology. We are wired for appropriate physical connection. Understanding and respecting that wiring is not a tactic, it is emotional intelligence. And now the seventh, the one I promised you at the beginning. The one that once you understand it will change how you think about attraction permanently. It is called variable reinforcement. And it comes directly from behavioral neuroscience. B.F. Skinner's foundational research in behavioral psychology established something that has since been confirmed across hundreds of studies. The most powerful reinforcement schedule is not constant reward, and it is not the absence of reward. It is unpredictable reward, intermittent, variable, impossible to fully anticipate or map. The reason is dopamine. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter at the center of motivation, craving, pursuit, and sustained engagement, does not fire most powerfully at predictable rewards. It fires in the anticipation of uncertain ones. This is the exact neurological mechanism behind why people compulsively check their phones even when they know there is probably nothing new. Why certain conversations feel impossible to step away from. Why some people occupy your thoughts long after the interaction has ended. In the context of human attraction, this translates into something specific and important. A person who is consistent in their values and their warmth, but who is not entirely predictable in their behavior, creates sustained neurological engagement in the people around them. Sometimes they initiate. Sometimes they wait and let others come to them. Sometimes they are expansive and open. Sometimes they are quietly reflective. They surprise you, not because they are performing unpredictability, but because they are genuinely layered, because they cannot be fully mapped, because there is always something more to discover. The effect of this on the brain is measurable and real. Variable social reinforcement keeps the brain's reward system active and invested. It creates what researchers call continued pursuit, the ongoing, compelling sense that this person is worth paying more attention to. I want to be precise here because this principle is frequently misunderstood and misused. Variable reinforcement is not hot and cold behavior. It is not deliberately withholding warmth to create anxiety. It is not cruelty with a scientific label attached to it. A person who is intermittently cold or cruel is not mysterious. They are simply unkind. And unkindness is not attractive. It is just painful. What I am describing is the natural complexity of a person who is genuinely engaged in their own life, who has emotional depth that cannot be summarized in a sentence, who has interests, perspectives, and layers that reveal themselves slowly over time. Mystery, in its truest form, is simply not being a simple equation. 7 triggers. Every one of them grounded in science. Every one of them available to you. Not because they are tactics you perform, but because they are qualities you grow. Non-anxious presence, honest emotional polarity, calibrated availability, intentional memory, structured vulnerability, appropriate physical connection, and the complex dopamine activating reality of being a full, genuine, irresistible human being. The thread connecting all 7 is this. Attraction is not something you chase. It is something you generate by becoming someone with depth, with presence, and with a genuine investment in your own life and growth. The people who are most consistently magnetic to others are not the ones running the cleverest strategy. They are the ones who have done the real internal work, who are genuinely interesting because they are genuinely interested in the world, in growth, in the people they meet. That is the real insight, and it was never hidden. It was always just science. Now I want to hear from you. Of these 7 triggers, which one do you feel you have been underusing the most? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and your answer may shape exactly what I cover next. If this gave you something real to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Magda K. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.